Welcome back. Still to come on Newsline, all today's business, sport, weather and that hat. But first, Arnold Schwarzenegger is making headlines again, with reports claiming the former Governator has at least 2 illegitimate children. Bethany England reports on the Fornicator's latest episode.
Actress Jane Seymour has claimed that disgraced politician Arnold Schwarzenegger may have at least 2 more illegitimate children. In a startling red carpet interview, Seymour said she was not surprised by Schwarzenegger's shock separation from his wife Maria Shriver, and that she'd heard about 2 more children from a source who knows him well. Seymour's outburst follows news that Shriver didn't know her husband had a child with their 50-year-old housekeeper, Mildred Boehner. It's also been reported that Boehner never told 13-year-old Joseph or her family that Schwarzenegger was his father. Seymour said she expected lots of information would be coming people's way in the coming days. So far, at least one more woman has claimed Schwarzenegger is the father of her child, telling his lawyers she wants a DNA test. Prior to the marriage scandal, Schwarzenegger had planned to resurrect his acting career with a return to the big screen. But it's yet to be seen whether he can repair his public image, which commentators say has been irreversibly damaged by his transformation from Governator to Fornicator. Bethany England, Newsline.
Thanks, Bethany. A 21-year-old man who was arrested for hooning yesterday has been re-arrested this morning for the same offence. After being released from Craigieburn Police Station this morning, the man drove off, only to return to the station and do burnouts in the car park. He was re-arrested shortly after. Almost 300 people lost their lives on Victorian roads last year, and this year the road toll stands at 124 deaths, up 20% from this time last year. Amelia Fellows reports on the group most likely to become a road statistic.
Roads are one of our biggest killers, with hundreds of Victorians dying in car accidents each year. So which drivers are most likely to be involved in a fatal crash? We took to the streets of Melbourne to find out who you think are Melbourne's most dangerous drivers.
I notice when I'm out, it's young girls.
And I think boy racers, they can be pretty irresponsible.
I definitely have to say females, sorry.
Well, personally, I think the taxis.
Well, I think it's the elderly because they're not used to the modern roads.
According to the most recent statistics released by the Traffic Accident Commission, male drivers aged 18 to 25 are the most likely to die on our roads. Last year, they accounted for 10% of the Victorian road toll, despite representing only a fraction of total licensed drivers. According to the RACV, drivers are at their most vulnerable when they first get their licence.
Really, the day they get their P plates, their risk of crashing skyrockets from when they're a learner, and it gradually goes down over a period of time. But the first 6 months and 12 months are a really high risk.
Experts name inexperience as one of the biggest factors in these crashes, with young male drivers often overestimating their capabilities behind the wheel.
I think that a main reason why maybe the stats are higher for males and females at the same age is because guys will tend to put themselves in a blokey looking car that's typically bigger, a bit more powerful, but I think the reality is there that those cars are harder to drive for inexperienced drivers.
For new drivers, the mix of inexperience with taking unnecessary risks behind the wheel can be a fatal combination. Often these risks involve speeding or driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and it seems that young males are far more likely than females to give in to their risk-taking impulse.
So males tend to be more risk takers than females, and it's part of the masculisation, if you like. So the more of a risk taker you are, the more manly you are.
In 2008, tougher licensing laws for P-plated drivers were introduced in an effort to cut down the young toll. These included adding another year to the probationary period and restricting the number of passengers allowed in a P-plated car. Learner drivers were also targeted, with learners now having to log 120 hours of driving experience before taking their licence test. The state government has recently dedicated more money to enforcing road laws, commissioning over 400 officers to police road trouble spots. But according to Acting Inspector John Gibson, throwing more police officers at the problem is not a sustainable solution.
The government is currently providing additional resources to us, but we also understand that you can't just keep asking for more and more people. There's not an endless bucket of money, so we need to examine the way that we actually do things.
Tougher laws and greater policing have had some success in reducing the road toll, but young male drivers are still dangerously overrepresented. And it seems that a lot of the battle is either won or lost at home.
The parents drive erratically, or they speed, or they drink drive, then that's going to have an influence on their kids. So if the parents can model responsible behaviour, then hopefully that might filter on to the kids as well. Because there's no point saying, you know, do as I say and not as I do. So the actions will speak a lot louder than words.
The incentive is painfully clear. Reducing the toll means fewer families will needlessly lose their sons and brothers on Victorian roads. John Gibson says there is still a long way to go, but the police are aiming high.
Ultimately, our aim is to have no road fatalities and no serious injuries. We've been consistently reducing the road toll as a steady decline over the last few years, but even one death on our roads is one death too many.
Amelia Fellows, Newsline.
And now to business with Hannah Caritas. Hannah, what's Kevin Rudd up to in China?
Yeah, hi. Kevin Rudd is currently in China. He just gave a speech yesterday at a Chinese university outlining his plan for Australia and China relationship. So he called this vision Australia-China 2.0. And in the plan, he was basically calling for more Chinese investment in Australian products. So currently, as it stands, the biggest industries that the biggest export industries that Australia exports to China are within our energy sector and our mining. And basically, Kevin Rudd was saying that there are other areas as well that Chinese should be looking at investing in. So some specific areas that he outlined included financial services, education and tourism, and also design. So Kevin Rudd really highlighted that he said that Australia was leading the world in innovative and environmentally friendly designing, and he was saying that China should really look at investing in designing companies and the Australian design industry. So overall, the speech has been well received by business leaders. The Business Council of Australia Chief Executive Jennifer Westacott today came out and said that Rudd identified a number of the most important issues that are facing the Australia-China relationship. So overall, it's been received quite well. And and Kevin Rudd was also quite optimistic about a free trade agreement between Australia and China. He said that could definitely be a possibility in the future. So yeah.
Oh, thanks, Hannah. Thanks for that in-depth report in China. And now to a bit of millinery business. Princess Beatrice's infamous headwear from last month's royal wedding has sold for £81,000. That's over 123,000 Australian dollars. Here's our tribute to the hat that has its own Facebook page.
Thanks for that package, Amelia. Still to come on Newsline, the importance of microchipping your pets and the latest in sport and weather.
Welcome back to Newsline. If you've ever had a pet, you know the heartache that comes when they get hurt, or worse, lost. Samish and I do report on how microchipping can keep your pet out of the pound.
From natural disasters to a gate left open, there are many ways your pet can become lost, all the more reason to ensure you can be reunited with them.
Microchipping has been brought in as regulations by councils now that all animals should be done by 12 weeks of age to prevent animals going lost and ending up in pounds without homes.
The procedure is simple. A syringe is used to inject a tiny chip under the skin of your cat or dog. Scanners can then identify the unique barcode which is linked to your details. Despite what many pet owners think, the procedure is hardly as scary as it sounds.
Generally speaking, no, it doesn't hurt them. It is quite a large needle when you see it, but it doesn't hurt, and we don't have many animals complaining too much when we microchip, and it's a very quick process as well.
11-year-old Nikita Buhagia only decided to microchip her dog Lucky when he was unlucky enough to get lost.
A couple months ago he ran away, and I was looking for him since 12 at night, and I just really didn't want him to run away again. I missed him too much.
While Lucky did live up to his name, Many cats and dogs never find their way home to their owners.
If an animal has no form of identification, they have to legally sit in a Victorian shelter or pound for an 8-day duration. And then on their 8th day, they'll be assessed on a suitability assessment, and that may cover health, age and behaviour. And then if they're deemed suitable and they pass that assessment, they're placed in our adoption pens, and they have to then wait for an owner to for an adopter to come forward and find them a suitable home.
And if no one comes to claim them?
If no one comes to claim them and unfortunately they fail that assessment, their fate is that they are put to sleep.
However, microchipping your pet is useless if you don't keep your contact details updated on a pet registry.
And yes, every time you move or change your phone number, it's really vital that you update your details against that microchip number or your identification tag, because they simply just do not work unless the contact information is up to date.
Meanwhile, if you love your pets, you heed the message. If you don't get them microchipped, you risk never seeing them again. Samisha Naidu, Newsline.
Thanks, Samisha. Now we're joined by Samantha Lowcock with today's sport. And Sam, there were some interesting results in the AFL over the weekend.
That's right, Claire. There were some really spectacular results yesterday. The first one being Collingwood beating the Adelaide Crows by 43 points at Etihad. This game was pretty amazing. Collingwood was down by 30 points at the half, but they managed to kick in 11 unanswered goals in the last quarter to win the match. The other spectacular game was the West Coast Eagles versus the Western Bulldogs in Subiaco. The West Coast Eagles won by 123 points, which is pretty crazy. It's got Josh Kennedy to thank for that, really. He kicked 10 goals. And after the match, coach of the West Coast Eagles, John Worsfold, came out and really silenced any of the critics that were saying that the Judd-Kennedy trade wasn't worth it. At the end of round 9, the ladder is looking a bit different to last year. You've got Geelong Cats at the top, Collingwood second, the Hawks and the Essendon Bombers rounding out the 4.
And Sam, some mixed results for our Australians in the French Open overnight.
That's right, Zach. Roland Garros started last night. A good start for Sam Stosur. She was the runner-up last year. She managed to win her first round match to Evita Benesova from the Czech Republic, 6-2, 6-3. So hopefully her form continues. Not so good for the other Aussie girls though, with Jelena Dokic, Casey Delacroix and Jamila Radianova, formerly Groth, dropping out in their first round matches. Bad news as well for Aussie Leighton Hewitt. He pulled out of the French Open 30 minutes before he was due to start. He said that it's an ankle injury, but news commentators are saying it might have something to do with his toe operation that happened in March.
Thanks, Sam. And now to today's weather. It's been a cloudy day with scattered showers and a high of 15 in Melbourne and Geelong. We'll see the same weather patterns tomorrow in both cities, cloudy and scattered showers with a maximum of 14 in Melbourne and 13 in Geelong. Wednesday, light showers and 14 degrees in Melbourne, 13 and light showers in Geelong. And that's all we have time for on Newsline today. Thanks for watching.
And I hope you can join us again tomorrow at the same time. Have a great evening.